Human physiology. Topic is eye. Eyes are complex sense organ. They gather information about the environment, and the brain interprets this information to form an image of what appears within the field of vision. Each eye has a layer of receptors, a lens system that focuses light on these receptors, and a system of nerves that conduct impulses from the receptors to the brain. The eye is often compared to a camera, with the cornea acting as the lens and the pupil diameter functioning like a aperture of the camera, and the retina serving as the film. Anatomy of the eye. Each eye is spherical, fully filled structure. Anatomically, the wall of the eye consists of three layers: fibrous tunic, muscular tunic, and retina. Fibrous tunic is the outer protective layer of the eyeball and consists of anterior cornea and posterior sclera. The sclera, the white of the eye, is a layer of dense connective tissue made up mostly the collagen fibers and fibroblasts. It provides shape and protects inner parts. Through the sclera, no light can pass. It is modified anteriorly to form the transparent cornea, through which light rays enters the eye. The cornea is transparent coat that covers the colored iris. Because it is curved, the cornea helps focus light onto the retina. Its outer surface consists of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The middle coat of the cornea consists of collagen fibers and fibroblasts, and the inner surface is simple squamous epithelium. The vascular tunic is middle layer of the eyeball. It is composed of three parts: iris, ciliary body, and choroid are collectively called uvula. The choroid is a vascular layer that provides oxygen and nutrients to the structures of the eye. It is the portion of the vascular tunic and deeply pigmented with the melanin. It provides blood supply and absorbs This is the structure of the eye. The first portion is cornea, conjunctiva, iris, lens, suspensory limb, ciliary body. Retina, choroid, sclera. Sclera, choroid, retina, optic. The choroid layer forms the ciliary body. This is the choroid layer, and it forms ciliary body and iris in front of the eye. The iris is the pigmented and colored portion of the eye. Round opening in the center of the iris through which light enters. Interior portion of the eye is the pupil. The iris contains circular muscles that constrict and radial muscles that dilates the pupil. It acts like the diaphragm of the camera, dilating and constricting the pupil to allow more or less light into the eye. Regulates amount of light that enters eye. Iris muscles are controlled by autonomic nervous system. Parasympathetic nerve fibers innervates the circular muscles, causing pupillary constriction, and sympathetic fibers supplies the radial muscles, causing pupillary dilation. Ciliary body is located behind the iris, produce aqueous fluid that fills the front part of the eye. The ciliary body has two major components: ciliary muscles and ciliary network that produce the aqueous humor. The ciliary muscle is a circular ring of the smooth muscle attached to the crystalline lens by suspensory ligament ciliary zonule. The crystalline lens is a transparent structure. It is made up of transparent cells that lose their nucleus and organelles during development due to the lack of DNA, protein synthesis machinery. Mature lens cells cannot regenerate or repair themselves. As a person grows older, the lens grows larger and thicker and becomes far less elastic, partly because of progressive denaturation of the lens protein. The ability of the lens to change shape decreases with the age. The ciliary muscles regulate the strength of the lens. The ability to adjust the strength of the lens is known as accommodation. The strength of the lens depends on its shape, which in turn regulated by the ciliary muscles. When the ciliary muscles is relaxed, the suspensory ligaments pulls the lens and make it slightly flat. But when the muscles contracts, lens becomes more spherical, convex. The greater the curvature of the spherical lens increases its strength. This is object and this one is image. Beyond the parda, object, this lens shifts the image upon the parda. In the normal eye, ciliary muscle is relaxed and the lens is flat and far vision. When the eye is focused on a distant object, the parallel rays coming into the eyes are then focused on the retina and we see the object clearly. In case of near vision, the muscle contracts which causes the lens to become more convex. When the eye is focused on a near object, the ciliary muscle adjusts the focal length in such a way that the image is again formed on the retina and we see the object clearly. This process of adjusting focal length is called accommodation. The interior surface of the eye opposite the lens is called the fundus. It includes the retina, optic disc, macula and fovea and the posterior fold. Ophthalmoscope is used to view the fundus of the eye. The retina is the light sensitive inner layer of the eye that covers about 65% of its interior surface. It consists of 3 layers of excitable cells. An outermost layer collages to the choroid containing the photoreceptors or photosynthetic cells, rods and cones, the middle layer of bipolar cells and associated interneurons, and an inner layer of ganglion cells. Axons of the ganglion cells joins to form optic nerves. The point on the retina at which the optic nerve leaves and through which blood vessels pass is the optic disc. The region is often called the blind spot. No image can be detected in this area because it has no rods and cones. A yellowish pigmented spot called the macula lutea is located at the center of the posterior portion of the retina. At the visual axis of the eye, a small depression in the center of the macula lutea is called fovea centralis. In it, the cones are densely packed. There are no blood vessels. Consequently, the fovea is point where visual acuity, sharpness of the vision is greatest. This is the direction of light. Optic nerve fiber, ganglion cells, bipolar cells, cones, and these are the rods. This is RPE, choroid and sclera. The outermost region of the retina contains supportive retinal pigment epithelium. This is the retinal pigment epithelium layer. There are 3 layers of the cells, light sensing rods and cones photoreceptors. Here light sensing rods and this one is cones photoreceptors, a middle layer of bipolar cells and the innermost layer of the ganglion cells. These are the bipolar cells. The inner layer is ganglion cells which transmit signals originating in the photoreceptor layers through the optic nerve into the brain. Chambers of the eye. The human eye can also be divided into two main segments, the anterior segment and posterior segment. Aqueous humor fills the space within the anterior segment. This is the anterior segment filled with the aqueous humor. The anterior segment has two chambers, anterior chamber between the cornea and iris. This is cornea and this one is iris. And the posterior chamber between the iris, and between the lens. This is posterior chamber, this one is anterior chamber. The aqueous humor is clearly protein-free liquid that nourishes the cornea and iris. It is produced by the capillary network within the ciliary body. Posterior segment includes vitreous chamber between the lens and retina. Vitreous chamber fills the vitreous chamber and it is gelatinous mass. It helps maintain the spherical shape of the eyeball. The lens is bathed on the one side by aqueous humor and supported on the other side by vitreous humor. It has no blood supply but is metabolically active and it obtains nutrient from the aqueous humor. Anterior and posterior segment of the eye. Anterior and posterior segments has two chambers, anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. The iris separates the anterior and posterior chamber of the eye. This is an iris. This is separated anterior posterior chamber. This is posterior segment include the vitreous chamber. Protective mechanism. Several mechanisms helps protect and export part of eyes from injury. Eyelids act like shutters to protect the exposed part of the eye from external injury factor. They close relaxedly to cover the eye under threatening situations. Frequent spontaneous blinking of the eyelids helps disperse and lubricating, cleansing bacterial tears. Tears are produced continuously by lacrimal gland. It is watery solution containing salts, some mucus and lysozymes, bacterial enzymes. The fluid protects, cleans, lubricate and moisten the eyeballs. The eyes are also equipped with protective eyelashes which trap fine airborne debris such as dust before it can fall into the eye. Photoreceptor cells. There are two types of photoreceptor cells, rods and cones. These cells are distinguished by shape and the type of photopigment they contain, distribution across the retina, pattern of synaptic connections. Each photoreceptor cell, rods and cone is divided into outer segment and inner segment that includes a nuclear vision and synaptic terminal. The outer segment detects the light stimulus. The inner segments are rich in mitochondria and this is the region that synthesizes the photosensitive compound. The synaptic terminals stores and release the neurotransmitters. These are the rod cells consisting of several discs in the outer segment, whereas the inner segment consists of mitochondria and nucleus. This one is the cone cell. Outer segment consists of discs and inner segment consists of mitochondria and nucleus from which arises a synaptic terminal. The structural difference between rods and cones. In the outer segment is the rod shaped in rods and cone shaped in cones. Each rod contains a stack of discs that are flattened membranes bound intracellular organelles. Cones generally have thick inner segments and cortical outer segments. Although their morphology varies from place to place in the retina, and saculas of the cones are formed by unfolding of the membrane of the outer segment. The saculas and disc contain light-sensitive photopigments. Photopigments undergoes chemical alteration when activated by the lights. Rods allows us to see the dim light because rods do not provide color vision. In dim light, we can see only black, white, and all shades of the gray in between. Brighter lights stimulates cones which produce color vision. Three types of cones are present in the retina. Blue cones which stimulates and sensitive to blue light. Green cones which are sensitive to green lights, and red cones which are sensitive to red lights. Color vision results from the stimulation of the various combination of these three type of cones. Photosensitive pigment in the rods is called rhodopsin. It is comprised of retinal and aldehyde of vitamin A and a transmembrane protein called opsin. Opsin is a member of G protein coupled receptor GPCR family. Retinal is the light absorbing part of the photopigment. In cone cells, there are different types of opsins that combine with retinal to form pigment called photopsins, also known as opsins and iodopsins. Rods and cones, there is a comparison. Rods uses the scotopic visions in dim light. Cones use the phototopic vision in highlight. Rods are very light sensitive, cones not very light sensitive. Rods loss causes night blindness, cones loss causes legal blindness. Rods not present on fovea, cones concentrated in fovea. Rods slow response to light, cones fast respond to light. Rods no one type of photosensitive pigment. Cones, three type of photosensitive pigments. Rods confer achromatic vision, only shades of grey. Cones confer color vision. Operation of photoreceptors. The process of converting light stimuli into the electric signal is called phototransduction. The events that take place in the rods are the same in cones except that cones absorb light in different parts of visible spectrum. We use rods as an example, but the same events take place in cones also. Light absorption by the rhodopsin, all transretinal. It activates transducin active. It activates phosphodiesterase active. It decreases the intracellular cyclic GMP, which increases GMP. Closure of sodium channels creates hyperpolarization and decreased release of neurotransmitters. During the diets, 11-cis retinal, transducin inactive, phosphodiesterase inactive, increased intracellular cyclic GMP, opening of the sodium channel, depolarization, increased relax of the neurotransmitters. The sequence of the events in the photoreceptors by which incident light leads to the production of a signal in the retina, summarized in the flowcharts above. We seen in dark the retinal in the rhodopsin is in the 11-cis configuration. When 11-cis rhodopsin absorbs light, it changes to all transretinal conformation. This in turn alters the conformation of the opsin and change activates the G protein transducin after cisretinal is converted to the old trans conformation. It separates from the opsin in a process called bleaching. Active transducin in turn activates the intracellular enzyme phosphodiesterase. This enzyme converts cyclic GMP to GMP, so reduce in the amount of cyclic GMP and increase in the amount of GMP. In the presence of light, reduction of cyclic GMP permits the ligand-gated sodium channels to close. Decrease in cytosolic sodium concentration causes hyperpolarization. The hyperpolarization leads to closure of the voltage-gated calcium channels and subsequent reduction in the release neurotransmitters glutamate from the synaptic terminal. Thus, phosphoreceptors are inhibited by light. The brightness of the light is greater, the hyperpolarization response greater, the reduction in glutamate release. Image formation. Light rays are refracted when they pass from a medium of one density into a medium of different density. As light rays enters the eye, they are actually refracted at the surface of the cornea and the anterior and posterior surface of the lens. Most of the refraction occurs at cornea itself in the same manner that a glass lens can focus image on the sheet of paper. The lens system of the eye can focus an image on the retina. The image is inverted and reversed with respect to the object. However, the mind perceives object in the upright position despite the upside down orientation in the retina because the brain is trained to consider an inverted image as the normal. Reflection abnormalities. Eyes are considered to be normal. Emmetropic. If the parallel rays from the distant objects are clearly focused on the retina when the ciliary muscles is completely relaxed, this meant that the emmetropic eyes can see all the distant objects clearly with its ciliary muscles relaxed. For normal eye, the far point could be at infinity. However, to focus objects at the close range, the eye must contract its ciliary muscles and thereby provide appropriate degree of accommodation. The nearest point for which the image can be focused on the retina is called the near point of the eye. The distance of the near point from the eye is called the least distance for clear vision. For normal eye, it is generally 25 centimeters. Many people, however, lack this ability because the refraction abnormalities. Among these abnormalities are myopia or nearsightedness and hypermetropia, hyperopia, farsightedness. Myopia occurs when the eyeball is too long relative to the focusing power of the cornea and lens, or when the lens is thicker than the normal, so an image converts in front of the retina. This is image converts in front of the retina. Myopic individual can see close objects clearly but not distant objects. Placing a biconcave lens a biconcave lens in front of the eye causes the light rays to diverge slightly before striking the eye, so they are brought to a focus on the retina. Hypermetropia occurs when eyeball's length is short. Eyeball length is short relative to the focusing power of the cornea and lens, or the lens is thinner than normal, so an image converts behind the retina. Hypermetropic individuals can see distant objects clearly but not close ones. The least distance for the clear vision becomes larger than 25 centimeter. Biconvex These are the biconvex lens. Correct this by adding to the refractive power of the lens of the eye. Defect can also arise if the ciliary muscles become weak and are not able to stand enough to reduce the focal length to appropriate value. When farsightedness develops due to this reaction, it is known as presbyopia. Another refraction abnormality is astigmatism, in which either the cornea or the lens has an irregular curvature. As a result, part of the image are out of focus and thus vision is blurred and distorted. Such person cannot see all the direction equally well. Thank you. This is all about structure and diseases of the eye.